All right, so what we're going to do today is, since we got done with this, remember the back side is just chunk number 2, so it's continuing with the same claim, right? So I know yesterday we wrote our whole piece of evidence, but our evidence was short. And this one, if we go to paragraph 4, this one's long, right? Like we have a lot in here on this one. So what I'm going to do is I want to see what we liked in this one. So look at our evidence that we had in there. And we labeled like our military is powerful and it's prepared, our emergency teams are working, our government continues, our financial institutions remain strong. I think that is the exact part that we want to embed, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to mark it on here. Did we start with our... No, we started here. I'm going to skip the our first priority, our citizens. I'm going to go down to the our government continues, and then I'm going to do our financial institutions remain strong. I think those are the key parts. Now I'm nervous to show y'all something that I like or show you something how to do. But what I think before we work on like embedding that, I think for this we need to paraphrase what comes before it. So what I like is that the last one finished here, like basically the end of the body paragraph, right? So what we need to do is we need to paraphrase where he left off and how he got to this part right here, right? Like we have to work on paraphrasing that. When we do this, when I talked about yesterday, like we embed with context, we have to give context there, right? So take a minute. This is going to be what we have to embed or paraphrase. So read that with your partner real quick and then see if you can paraphrase what the main idea is of paragraph 3. You got like a couple of minutes, ready, set, go. All right, so let's look at, I'm still going to go in, kind of divide this in half. All right, remember in a paraphrase, I can't have the language from the passage, right? So somebody give me what your paraphrase is.
Terrorists can cause physical destruction, but they can't destroy the American spirit.
Okay, that works for me. All right, so
we wouldn't say in the second half?
we're not in the second half.
Oh.
That's a new claim, right? So this, in the first half and the second half, go with like our claims to start our body paragraphs. This is the end of paragraph 1, right? So I have to transition from where we were before. The emotional list shows the stages of grief that Americans have experienced in under 12 hours. Bush then, right, so I'm talking about what he did above, Bush then, give me a verb. What's a good verb for what he's about to do? We don't want to do reaffirms or affirms, right? Because that's part of like our purpose. We want to kind of stay away from that for now. Okay. Bush then declares, Sarah, tell me what you said again. That
terrorists can cause physical destruction, but they can't destroy the atmosphere.
I don't like what I'm about to do, and I'm trying to figure out a way not to do it. Okay, so let's do this. We're not going to put the period there yet because we're going to try to do the other part. So I'm going to talk to you about ellipses, and I think I talked to you about it before. We can take any bits and pieces of a passage, right? We don't ever want to just pull like individual words, right? But the power in here is that repetition, the action verbs, the descriptors, and the parallelism, right? So we have to show that, and I think showing it multiple times, more than 2. I mean, I'm going to tend to do 4 here because I think there's strength in that, and the more that I put in there, the more I can talk about, right? So there's no value in just saying our military is powerful and prepared. Like there's not, like, you can talk about the conjunction, but that's too thin. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to start because it's the start of a sentence. So our military is powerful and it's prepared. Now, the issue with this quote is that it's long, right? Like all the pieces are long. So you have a couple of options. If you have longer ones and you only want the beginning and the end, you can take the beginning, quote it, like give me context leading into it, give me part of the beginning, paraphrase what's in between of it, and then give me the end quote, right? Like so you can piece things together that way, right? Here, I'm going to use ellipses, and we're going to use it. When you use an ellipses, it has to be grammatically correct still, right? And it cannot be taken out of context. So whatever you do, ... right? Like you can't take those things out of context, whatever you're putting in there. So our military is powerful and prepared. We like that. Our emergency teams are working. Now, I'm skipping all that other part. I'm going down to our government continues, right? So I'm going to so it says the functions of our government continue, right? But I'm going to keep this like structure the same. So I'm just going to start at our government now. What doesn't work there? Yep, so I'm just going to do bracket, the square bracket, and I'm going to put my S in there. And then I'm taking out that middle part, right? And then our financial institutions remain strong. So what do I need moving from this to that? And, yep. And our financial institutions remains strong. Now, we don't have to do the ellipses afterwards because it's not impacting us. We're just not going to use it. You can stop and end a quote wherever you need to, as long as it's embedded contextually correctly or grammatically correctly and that you don't lose the context, right? So I'm going to end my quote there. Now, if I had a period here and I started this there, what do I call that? Quote drop. Yep. So we got to figure out a way to move from this into that without going period, he states, right? Because even though there's context in there, I don't like that. So turn to your partner. How can we get this part from here to here to embed?
Like how you like put the words in, like to make it make sense. Like this stuff to make it make sense. Okay, our military is powerful and is prepared.
All right, what can we put in there?
Because of
Bryce? Nope. Oh, you're starting from the beginning again? Oh, sorry, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Bush then declares that the terrorists can cause physical destruction, but they can. But our military is powerful and it's prepared. Therefore, they can destroy the American spirit.
I don't want anything after. You could, I would say, you were close in saying like the Bush then declares the terrorists can cause physical damage, but we would need something to kind of transition to our military.
Did you say that Bush then declares that terrorists can cause physical damage, but they can't show it through the fact that our military is still powerful?
What would be a simpler way through the fact that? Because.
So is it okay to just one word? Like it doesn't have to be all words.
I mean, we're paraphrasing that, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's that easy. Yesterday we had to like kind of manipulate like verbs and stuff, right? Like all those things in there. So now, Bush then declares that terrorists can cause physical damage, but they can't destroy the American spirit because our military is powerful and it's prepared, our emergency teams are working, our government continues, and our financial institutions remain strong. Easy? Okay. So, looking at our labels, because that's what our questions have to be about, right? We labeled the repetition of the pronoun, right? And structure. We talked about the verbs and the descriptors. We also didn't label, but I want us to, parallelism. Do we need a quick reminder about what parallelism is?
yes.
All right. So, when I have parallelism, you hear the pattern, right? Our military, our thing is blank. Our blank is blank, right? So there's a pattern in there, which is parallelism. So when you have it, if you have a piece of paper and you want to write this down somewhere, you probably should if you need help on understanding what parallelism is. Our military is powerful. This one's a little bit longer because there's an addition and prepared. So, just like in math, I can draw lines, right? Our emergency teams are working. Our government continues. our financial institutions remain strong. So, what I like about parallel, remember the questions we asked about the list? What we did is we kind of created a list, right? So when you have parallelism, you can talk about the whole list of parallel things. So what would be a question I could ask about the whole list of paralleled things?
Does the repetition, what is the parallel ideas? Like,
The what is going to lead me to summary, right?
Thanks.
how do the parallel, does that work? How do the parallel ideas make it, like, I don't want to say stand out, but like make.
Look at our questions from yesterday. Okay, you could ask, but what part, right? Because just as you can look at things this way, you can also look at things that way. You can also look at things that way. You can also look at why this is described by that. Right? So just like we have a list and there's so much value in the list, when we have things that are parallel, we have things to talk about. So you remember when on your test I was like, this and that is not parallel. Because you don't have anything to talk about. But this and that, this and that, this and that, this and that. Now that's parallel. Okay, so turn to your partner. I want you to write some questions down. And then I will approve them. Ready, set, go.
It's like how are the parallel ideas?
I would have at least two. Like for this one, I find valuable. Now there's like 7 or 8.
Alright, what's going on? We're trying to figure out questions for the analysis. How do I know? How do I know?
I just found there's more strength. Why is that right?
I was like this next to make it overly strong to stand out.
Did I already say that? Oh, what? Can you not say like why do they do the military emergency sections? What do you call them? Why do they do the military order? They're definitely it's saying military emergency zones.
No, we're like trying to talk about these.
Right? That's why I'm not going to and that'll be the answer to the question. So I can say it's worse than that. I just will find out. Right here? With ourselves? We're like letters now.
Yeah, why did you list those?
Why is there so much?
All right. Y'all ready to give me some questions?
Yes.
All right. Give me some questions.
Is there an order to the nouns, like in the parallelism?
The is just a yes or a no. That's not an analysis question.
Why is the repetition of hours so important?
Okay. Let's see if we can attach it to something. I think what we could, and it's new, I haven't thought of it this way. Instead of just saying why is it important, can we go ahead and maybe ask a question of something that leads into connecting to something in the rhetorical situation? So, why is the repetition of hour important to tie it to something on the rhetorical situation?
The American spirit.
Well, the American spirit isn't in our... What if we attach it to our claim? Why is the repetition of our important to prove America's resilience? Did we say perseverance? Okay, that would work.
I had something really similar to that. I said, how do the descriptors emphasize our country's perseverance? So you're allowed to restate the claim in the question.
You're not restating it, you're connecting to it. Say that again.
How do the descriptors emphasize American? Can you say the same thing about how do the parallelize it?
Hold on. How do the descriptors... Yeah, I don't want us to go too far into perseverance because this bow tie down here is going to connect to our claim. So down here we have to prove how both evidence will equal perseverance, right? So I don't want to show y'all too many questions that go straight to perseverance because that's going to be what we call our bow tie at the end. So what can we say about what if we go, why are the descriptors paralleled? So this is what we're labeling as descriptors. So we would probably have to talk about these two things, right?
I did. How does the parallelism help Bush reassure?
But let's be specific about a certain part. You're going in the right direction, but let's be let's talk specifically about, so let's add in that first part. So how does the paralleled list of, they're nouns, but they're parallel list of nouns I don't want to always just go back to the purpose either, because naturally if we go to prove our claim is inherently going to prove our purpose. But how does the parallel list of nouns, what do you think that whole...
Bush conveys message.
Too vague. What's the goal of that piece of evidence? Okay, so how does that list of nouns help Bush reassure who? Nope.
Reassure protections.
Why are we gonna reassure the terrorists?
That we're strong because they attacked us.
So reassure isn't the right answer for them. We never talk about Americans. Why? Is what? It's too vague.
Reassure that we're working together.
No. Reassure, give me an audience. The what? Feared citizens? Scared? Why are y'all guessing? You have a freaking sheet in front of you that has all of the things. Stop trying to think off the top of your head. We have done 4 weeks of planning. That's what this is for, right? So one of our audiences is scared Americans. So how does the paralleled list of nouns help reassure, you could say, not only scared Americans, but also, let's look outside of America.
We do like sympathetic allies, like we want to show them we don't like use them.
I don't know if we want to show them that because we're getting ready to go to war. So I would just say instead of sympathetic allies, I would just say also our allies. Sydney, you could just put that on my desk. Both parts. I think that would work. What other questions do you have in there that y'all asked?
You say, like, why did they choose? I don't know how to work. Just like, why did they choose those things to highlight? Like, why do you choose like the middle
Okay.
and all that?
Is that kind of what this is doing too? I think you could say how or why for this question, right? Why does the parallel list of nouns help Bush? So why or how would work there. Yeah? What else? You want to get as much of this out of it as you can. So what did we also say? So we've done this part, right? We've talked about this part, right? Now what part have we not talked about? Okay. So what question can I ask about why those are paired together?
Why are the action verbs describing the pronoun?
Okay, so y'all know what pronouns are, right? Pronouns, they, our, we, they, right? So why are, and you could say like collective nouns because that's the our military. That's together, right? Why are the collective nouns? Because our is collecting the military. Why are the collective nouns paired with their descriptors? All right. So what I would do before you start writing your analysis is I would create some kind of order out of those questions, right? Because as we did the last ones, we kind of worked in a logical order through, right? Through to both lists. So find a logical order to work through. Your job is to write the analysis here by Monday when you walk in. Now, yesterday we talked about my sarcastic brain grading, right? Didn't I talk to y'all about that yesterday?
Yes.
That like when we talk about like things in a passage, we would never say like George Bush paints a picture, right? Because in my head, I see a little cartoon bush with a little cartoon easel and a little cartoon brush painting, right? We will never say tugs at readers' heartstrings, stop putting up and pay attention. We will never say tugs at readers' heartstrings because hearts don't have strings. Okay, anybody ever see Meet the Fockers? Anybody? Yes? Where he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm milking a cat. He's like, how do you milk a cat? And he's like, right? Like that's what I hear when you guys say like pulls on readers' heartstrings. I hear, right? So we want to choose verbs that are better. So instead of like paints a picture, illustrates, right? Details. So we want to choose better verbs. The other thing that we don't talk about with repetition is we never say that repetition makes the reader think. One, it's the wrong audience. And two, no, it doesn't. Repetition also never puts in the reader's mind or puts in the audience's mind. If you start to phrase something and you go, oh, Smith's brain is going to go sarcastic cartoon, then that's probably not the best way to phrase it, right? Cements in the minds, puts in the brain, like I just see a little like cartoon brain like open up and then somebody like putting things in it and then closing it. That's how my brain works when I grade your papers. So your job is to do this. don't do the bow tie. We'll talk about that on Monday. Okay? The other thing that you have to make sure you have done by next week is making sure all your annotations align with mine for Obama, Thatcher, and Lewis. Because you're going to want them when you start writing. Okay? Okay.